item and so on. So we'll be using especially the set item and get item and clear. As for clear, if you want to clear the local storage, then you call that. So now local storage, when I call the local storage, you see now it has nothing inside it. It has cleared those things we saw earlier. So the clear function is what cleared it. Now it is a browser API, so once you learn it or you get it this way, you'll be able to tell the functions you can use inside that. Okay, good. So let me give you a practical example of how we can put our own content in the local storage. Now before I do that, let's go back to the application again, and then let me open up this. You can see now this part is empty. There were things in here earlier, but the key is empty, the value is empty. So with the set property or set item property, this is what happens. When you call the set item property, it allows you to put the item key. Okay, you see, when it's a function, so when I call that and I brought the parenthesis, it says I should set the key and then the value of that particular key. Okay, so I may say maybe the key is first name. It has to be in a quote, first name. Okay, and then the value of the key, let's say Hola Ajono, right? So that is what I am setting here. So local storage, which is a small storage in a browser that you can use to store something and retrieve later, is what we are looking at. Okay, so you can also use it to store anything you want. Now it requires that you put in a key to identify that storage value, and then the value is also set at the right side. Now when I hit enter and then I go back, let me open the other one here. So I'll open my F12. So I'm just opening, I just don't want to be going back and forth with the application and this thing here. So let me open the application from this side, then open the local storage. So I have another one here. I can see, oh okay, it comes within this browser. Let me see something. Okay, so I can see it directly here, but why is it not showing up here? Because it stores it in the main storage. Let me see something. It's as if it's trying to load certain things in the background. So okay, so it's loading some other stuffs in the background. You can see current now a new thing has loaded from Google. I think Google's browser is what is bringing this ones in, but again you can see mine is here, right? Even though I created it here, you see Google's own has been added here. So I think it's some stuff they are storing in there to also give them some clue on the page. Okay, and it may vary from mine, may be slightly different from yours. You can see a whole lot of stuff in there. That's why they always say Google always track and record your activities when you are on their page. Okay, so now I have the item set and you can see that. Let me go to the console again and do the same thing, but this time let me do occupation, right, and say computer programmer. Okay, so when I do this, I hit enter. When I go back here, I will see occupation. You can see I didn't even refresh, but automatically I can see occupation here. So these things are being stored in the browser for me. So even if I close this my browser, that is an advantage of this local storage. When you close your browser and you open, it still persists. It's still there unless you clear it yourself. But session storages only pertains to the open instance of that particular browser. Like when you open the browser and you're using it, that's when it keeps it. But then immediately you close your browser, it goes off, it clears the session, right? So let's go in there, press F12. I've closed the browser, I've reopened the browser, and then I want to go into the applications section. Now you can see I still have my occupation and the first name in there, right? So they are still stored in there. Now if I want to retrieve something I have stored in the local storage of my browser, I need to do this. So I will also say const create a variable and store it in. So const first, let me call it first fn equals my local storage dot get item, right? And the get item would ask you of the key you use to reference that item, the value. So the key was first name, I think so. So when I hit enter, it would go and look for that first name and then capture it. Now when I call the fn direct, you can see it's showing my name here. So it's retrieving this information from my storage where I have kept it. Even though I close this browser and I reopen and I've not yet set anything into it, I still can be able to retrieve the things already there. And then I can also do const occ, okay, which is occupation equals local storage dot get item of occupation. And then when I do the occ, you can see I can now retrieve the occupation. So in the same way, we can also create a form. We can also create a form on our page like we did in this page here. At the top here, you see we created a form here. We can use this form to actually submit content into our database, like our local storage. I did not add images here because images are a bit complex. I don't want to keep it simple, but then I wanted a scenario where we can be passing content from here, so that content is stored. When we click on submit, is stored in our local storage. Now how can we do that? We can retrieve values that are being placed in here and then put it in the local storage. So first of all, let's look at this place and see how we named those controls. So in the top section, if you had the same thing as mine, you know, we have ID of price, title, and then a description for place, desk for a placeholder. Okay, so in an HTML document, if you want to retrieve data from your controls here, you need to actually reference to these ID references here, okay, in order to pull the data from the elements you have in here. So let's go into our app.js file. Now we want to see, currently we are able to store let me open this directly in Chrome. Okay, we still can be able to do that there, but yeah, let me just do something here. So I'm just showing the page in Chrome as well. Now this is what I'm going to do. We'll target these elements, and then anytime we submit some contents here and click on send, it's going to store in the local storage. So let me open this and then do a function. So I'll say function save or add user data. Okay, add user data. So this is going to be the name of our function called add user data. And when we were talking about, we learned about functions in JavaScript, we said, or I mentioned, that functions defines a unit of code, like a block of code, and these codes are only executed when you call them. So let me just put something here called alert. Okay, alert is just a browser API that allows you to display something in the browser interface. So I will just say you clicked me. Okay, let me just put this in here. So you can also type this function, and then the name of the function is add user data, but this is not what we are leaving there. We just want to use it to check something. Add user data, and then this add user data function with the parenthesis, you'd copy that, or you can type that in where you have the button. You see the button here, that is this one. Okay, this send button is what we have here, right here. It has a value of send, but buttons have something we call events. Okay, events in programming, events are things that cause certain things to actually trigger a behavior. Okay, so like a button, when I click on a button, what do I want the button to do? Do I want it to open another thing? So the event is going to trigger that particular element to open up, or to display it in a different way, something depending on the behavior I set to it. So that is what the events cause, and we have so many events: on click, on hover, and so on. When the mouse moves over something, what it should trigger to cause it to do something, change its color, and so on. Some of these things we'll be doing, and then when we get to React, we'll be using them a lot. Event behaviors, okay, in programming, and this time we are using it in JavaScript or the HTML. So let's do on click. So it means that when I on click, you see on double click too is here. It means you have to double click the item. So we are giving it the on click behavior, and then we'll put in the function here. Sometimes you can end it with a semicolon, or you can ignore. Now when you do this, when I do this, putting this function name with the parenthesis because it's a function, and then in my file, which is the JavaScript, I have that same name as the function name, and then I have some small code here to alert or display a message on the browser saying that you clicked me. Okay, but also you have to make sure the reference to this app.js file is placed on your page. Other than that, the HTML page will not be linked to the JavaScript file to cause the event to be triggered. So now that this is here, the file also have the function, and I'm calling this. Look at what will happen when I try to click on the send. Okay, when I click on the send, I should see that alert on my screen. So you can see this is the alert, and then it says you clicked me. So it means that this button is actually firing the event and then going into my JavaScript to also call this activity to be displayed on my screen. Good. I don't like the way the button, the mouse pointer shows on the button, so I want to change the cursor behavior of the button in my style sheet. So let me go and look for my button, or I can also say, okay, there's it, input of type button. Now I want to change the cursor. You can look for it in your CSS.